Now, what I find is very interesting, though, is some of these very same cars are owned and driven by the Democrats, people in their own party. I mean, that is Democrat on Democrat crime if I've ever seen it. Now, this shows their playbook and, unfortunately, their values. Attack the person, not the policy, which brings me to this. Before Democrats begin their next fear-mongering campaign, let me set the record straight. Last week, President Trump signed an executive order to improve our country's education. Republicans want the best outcomes for students, and so does President Trump. The president simply asked the secretary to work with Congress to come up with a plan to put students first, not the bloated bureaucracy, teachers' unions, or Randy Weingarten. Like the rest of the federal government, the U.S. Department of Education needs to be run efficiently and effectively. We should focus the dollars on the students, not the administrators. I mean, despite billions of dollars being spent year after year, and every year we spend more, what happens to our outcomes? The test scores have not improved. They've gone the opposite direction. The Department of Education has received more funding every year despite lower outcomes. The American people are paying more and getting less. We can't keep dumping more money into a broken system. Our goal is to make the education system better and better for students. Democrats are telling more lies. Their lies about Medicaid have already been debunked, and these education talking points should be debunked too. Now, shifting gears to what else happened during recess. I don't know if you noticed, but Democrats had held a Medicaid day of action, right? All got together, big day of action. But unfortunately, they missed the real day of action when they voted to shut the government down. They voted against Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security recipients. They voted against paying our service members, and they voted against funding WIC. They also voted against the American people. This led to a complete meltdown by the Democratic Party. And when asked repeatedly whether he has confidence in Senator Schumer, House Minority Leader took days to decide. Others have publicly ridiculed Senator Schumer. Listen to some of their own comments. Quote, Schumer is supposed to be the leader of the opposition, not a rank and file member of the GOP. Another one, and I quote, I think it's a huge slap in the face, and I think there's a wide sense of betrayal. And some even called for Senator Schumer's resignation. Again, Democrats don't have a clear leader, and recent polls prove this. When asked who best reflects the core values of the Democratic Party, there was no clear answer. 10% said AOC. She got the highest number of votes. 9% said Kamala Harris, 8% said Bernie Sanders, and Rep. Crockett, a chosen Your Fighter participant, tied former President Obama with 4%. During recess, I expected to see Schumer and Jeffries proving to the country that they are the leaders of the party. But do you know who filled the void for them? Governor Walz, Rep. AOC, and Senator Bernie Sanders. It seems that the extreme socialists are the leaders of the Democratic Party. And they took their message nationwide. Socialists are defining the Democrats' identity amidst the leadership void. I bet this leads to more Democratic infighting, fear-mongering, of course, and advocacy for even more an extreme agenda. The Democrats will do this while their party's favorability rating is at an all-time low. Gee, I wonder why. Meanwhile, Republicans are united behind President Trump and the American people's agenda. And I'll say that again. We are united around President Trump and the American people's agenda. Americans are optimistic. Americans believe the country is headed in the right direction. Republicans are getting the country back on track. This is thanks to President Trump and Republicans' efforts to restore common sense. And it's not a coincidence that President Trump's approval rating is reaching all-time highs. And approval of House representatives is moving upwards as well. House Republicans are securing the border, we are protecting women, and we are passing legislation to lower costs for American families. We kept the government open, and our day of action was voting to protect Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security recipients. And House Republicans passed our House budget resolution, and the Senate should pass it too. And I'll share with you, we are just getting started, so buckle up. And because we have a long way to go and a lot more wins on the horizon. And here to speak about the House Republicans' work is freshman Representative Pat Harrington from North Carolina. He's a combat veteran and a small business entrepreneur, and he's going to give his perspective on working in the unified House GOP. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You don't probably need that box, do you?
We could put it underneath the podium.
Yeah,
Be all
you
right.
don't need it.
No. Hey, good morning, everybody. I want to talk about the Democrat disconnect, and this should be a proper term at this point. But I want to share that when I came to Congress just a few months ago, from day one, it's been clear to me that we House Republicans are both unified and focused. We know who we are, we know what we stand for, and we know what the American people sent us here to do. The same cannot be said for the Democratic Party. Right now, their party is in complete disarray. Their coalition is fractured. Their leadership has vanished, and their message is completely disconnected from the lives of ordinary Americans. 1 year ago, 75% of Democrats approved of their party's performance in Washington. Just this last week, that number has collapsed to just 40%. Their base is abandoning them, and it's pretty darn easy to see why. While Americans are struggling with the cost of groceries, gas, and rent, Democrats are putting on a nationwide socialist roadshow with Bernie Sanders and AOC. That's their response to getting rejected at the ballot box. Just going even further to the fringe. AOC is literally sharing tips on how illegal immigrants can evade ICE. At the same time, Bernie Sanders is on national television claiming that no Democrat supports open borders and illegal immigration. The left hand doesn't know what the far left hand is actually doing. Democrats are too busy fighting each other and staging a coup against Chuck Schumer to offer any kind of real substantive leadership. There is a complete disconnect between Democratic leaders and the American people. They aren't listening, they aren't leading, and they are not even pretending to care about the kitchen table issues any longer. Instead, they're doubling and tripling down on the same radical policies that voters overwhelmingly rejected in November. And I think that is an incredibly important point. They voted against protecting women's sports. They've blocked efforts to close our southern border. They've refused to deport violent criminals, sex offenders, gang members, and they've tried to decriminalize illegal and fought against voter ID laws. They're not letting biological men participate in girls' sports, turning their backs on parents, and most importantly, basic common sense. This is not a party that is looking to course correct. It's a party moving even further to the left at the exact moment voters are telling them to turn around. Meanwhile, House Republicans, all of us up here, are moving with genuine purpose and clarity. We're working to secure the border, lower costs, strengthen our economy, and protect our communities for the benefit of the American people. The contrast could not be clearer. One party is delivering, the other is falling apart.
Thanks, Pat. For 4 years, the Biden administration allowed millions of illegal aliens into the United States, including the murderers of Laken Riley, of Jocelyn and Gary, and Kayla Hamilton. Only 12 days ago, a Georgia mother of 5 was brutally murdered by a monster who was caught and released by the Biden administration in 2021. The need to get dangerous illegal aliens out of our communities is urgent. Under the Biden administration, our nation's adversaries became emboldened by the weak and incompetent leadership displayed in the Oval Office. The mission to restore America's military dominance and strength on the world stage has never been more urgent. Since 2017, Americans have enjoyed historic tax cuts implemented during President Trump's first term, which grew real wages by nearly 5%. The call to keep those cuts in place and prevent a tax hike of historic proportions is also urgent. The mandate to enact President Donald Trump's agenda is even more urgent. In November, 77 million Americans had a fire underneath them when they went to the polls and voted for real change. Now Congress ought to light our own match and get moving. Dragging our feet on reconciliation is not an option. Failure is not an option. And for border security, not for national security, and not for the prosperity of everyday Americans. The Republican trifecta must continue to move in lockstep with urgency for the American people, as we've already done in historic ways. The work ahead will not be easy, but we will get it done, and we will deliver on our America First agenda. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Whip. While the Democrat Party continues to show the country that they're a leaderless, rudderless ship, Republicans have been uniting to lead this country out of the doldrums from the Biden administration. You can just look at the actions we've taken in the House, working with the Senate and with President Trump to start getting our country back on track. And that hard work is already paying off for American families. You're seeing gas prices start to come down. Egg prices are starting to come down. And what's really important for long-term growth, billions and now trillions of dollars of private investment are coming back home to America to create really good, high-paying jobs for American workers. The Speaker and I were proud to attend a White House ceremony yesterday with our governor and other leaders, where Hyundai announced a multi-billion-dollar plant that they're building in the United States of America, going to create about 1,400 jobs in Louisiana. This is just one of many examples that we're seeing that we call the Trump effect, where we're seeing so many companies invest heavily in Louisiana and other states. In our state alone, we've had probably over $40 billion of private investment announced since President Trump took office again. And that's not only really good jobs, it's things like energy security, building more car manufacturing plants, and the resources that go along with it. We'll no longer have to source those materials from other countries. Hostile countries, in many cases, will now be able to refine those materials here in the United States as well with American workers. That would not have happened without the leadership of President Trump. We've totaled up, when you look at all the private investment that's come into the United States, just in the 2 months since Donald Trump has taken office, it's nearly $4 trillion in new jobs and investment in the United States of America. That's historic. It's unprecedented, and we're just getting started. We've been talking to President Trump. I talked to him twice over the weekend about budget reconciliation. Now that we got government funding out of the way, and the Speaker did a phenomenal job of uniting Republicans. Imagine a CR to fund government passed exclusively by Republicans. One Democrat came along after we had the votes to pass it in the House, and then the Senate ultimately had to finally take that bill up and pass it themselves, which is what caused the Democrats to go into yet another tailspin, because Democrats wanted to shut the government down. Almost every Democrat voted against that bill, which also, by the way, had a 40-year largest increase pay raise for our military, our men and women in uniform who deserved that massive pay raise. Almost every Democrat voted no on that, as well as trying to shut the government down. So they still don't want to be serious. They're not going to be taken seriously by the American people. But we're going to keep doing our job. And the next job is budget reconciliation. That is number one on President Trump's priority list now, to get Congress to work together with him to pass that one big beautiful bill that we've been talking about. A bill that not only locks in tax rates, creates more investment in the United States, but also allows us to produce more energy in America, lowering costs for families. Creates more border security for America to allow President Trump to continue the great work he's done. We've seen over a 95% drop in illegal crossings. We need to build out the wall. We need to give more technology to our Border Patrol agents that President Trump has asked for, strengthening our national defense and bringing common sense back into the rule and regulatory process in Washington. These are just the first few months of what's going to be an historic majority working for the American people, delivering results for the American people. And the man who's leading this cause and uniting Republicans, even with just a 2-seat majority, hopefully not for much longer, we're going to grow that number. But even with that, our speaker's been keeping us together, moving our agenda. Speaker Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Leader Scalise and these other members. It's a great day, but I've got to address a couple of things with you, and I need to start with something that's pretty serious. Chuck Schumer engaged in a lot of unusual activity last week, but among the most concerning was his invitation to activists nationwide. I want to quote to you what he said on PBS and I think in other venues, but this is what he said on that particular program, quote, "We are mobilizing in New York. We have people going to the Republican districts and going after these Republicans who are voting for this and forcing them to either change their vote or face the consequences," unquote. It was reminiscent of the threats he made to Supreme Court justices a year and a half ago or so on the steps of the Supreme Court. It's dangerous rhetoric, and that message was received. So we had far left activists go into some of these events. They engaged in a physical altercation at least one of them, Representative Lawler in New York, just hours after he made that call to action. This isn't just a problem in that state, it's a problem across the country. And we had members who are rightfully concerned about threats of physical violence at their events and in their districts. In some cases, they even went to events for their children at school. It's gotten out of hand. That behavior cannot be tolerated. It's an enhanced threat environment for a lot of reasons. And we see Tesla dealerships being firebombed and all these things happening. It cannot be encouraged by leaders in Congress. So I'm calling on Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries in the House to put an end to this, to explain that threats of violence and intimidation like that is not an acceptable form of political protest. We all believe in free speech. I used to defend it in courts, but this is something very different, and it's a very serious situation, and they need to get control of that. Chuck Schumer and congressional Democrats are feeling the heat, and they're lashing out because of it. And we saw all sorts of unusual activity over the last week. It's well chronicled. The Democrats have no vision, no message, no leader. You heard about it here today. The American people have taken note. CNN found that just 29% of the people view the Democratic Party favorably now. NBC found the number at 27%. Quinnipiac poll over the weekend was an interesting one. Since they've been taking the poll, which goes back many years, decades, congressional Democrats are at their lowest approval rating with their own base ever. They're 9 points underwater. What's really interesting about that, Politico did a piece on this, and they contrasted where the Democrats stand and where we stand. While they're at their lowest number of all time and they're 9 points underwater with their own base, congressional Republicans are at our highest mark ever, and we're at plus 69 points with our own base. That's a pretty stark contrast. And I think we all know why. Axios reported yesterday that Democrats are, quote, in their deepest hole in nearly 50 years. This is not a mystery. Everyone understands what's happening and why. In their haste to oppose President Trump in our efforts to make government more efficient, Democrats are cutting off their noses to spite their own face. Look, I've made a list of this. They're cheering the decline of an American company which employs over 100,000 workers. They refused to celebrate the return of stranded American astronauts because SpaceX facilitated their return. Without a hint of irony, they're trading in their electric vehicles for SUVs, as was noted earlier. All right. They publicly refused to stand for a childhood cancer survivor, victims of violent crimes during President Trump's joint address. Their message has gone from, it's more than just anti-Trump now, it's anti-American. And everyone sees that. And the polling reflects it. The American people are not stupid. They understand what's happening here. We have a word of advice to our Democrat colleagues. If you want to pull yourselves out of the wilderness and the doldrums that you're in, get on board with the American people who support our common sense agenda. It is common sense to keep men out of women's sports. It is common sense to secure the border and deport dangerous illegal aliens, as you talked about earlier. It is common sense to make government more efficient and cut fraud, waste, and abuse and do right by the taxpayer. We are not doing these things because they're Republican priorities. They are priorities because it's the right thing to do. And the American people want the right thing to be done. And the Democrats are opposing it. And they see it very clearly. Republicans in Congress enjoy record high levels of approval because we're engaging in what we understand to be simple truths, and we're delivering on it. We got a small majority, that's true. But this House GOP conference has stayed together and stayed laser focused on passing common sense legislation and executing the Trump agenda as quickly as possible. When we stay united, we do right by the people. We look forward to working with Leader Thune and our Senate counterparts to move that budget reconciliation bill. It will be the largest, most consequential piece of legislation in decades, maybe in one of the most in all of the history of Congress. We're excited to deliver that for the people, and we have no time to waste. We've got almost 80 million people that supported President Trump and House Republicans. We all had our largest totals ever. We're going to do what they asked us to do, and we are not going to keep them waiting. And so you're going to see us moving aggressively here and across the country to make sure that happens. So I'll yield some of your questions.
You just mentioned the Senate. Also, y'all released a statement yesterday about this. Do you think that the Senate is dragging their feet on reconciliation? Do you think they need to kind of speed things up and hurry up?
Well, look, I'm going to say this, and I've been saying this consistently, and I believe it. There's no daylight between House and Senate Republicans. We are one team. I speak with Leader Thune about this constantly, and with individual members of the Senate over there. We're all united on the mission, and there's been different ideas about how to complete the mission, but I think it's all coming together now. This week will be pivotal. We have a big meeting at the White House later today with the leaders in both chambers, Republican leaders, to unite and get this thing done. I don't fault the Senate. They've had a lot on their plates. They had to get all the confirmations done for the administration. It takes a lot of floor time. Leader Thune's kept them in 5 days a week, just working around the clock, getting their job done. But we began in the House. We have a bit of an advantage over the Senate because we began this a long time ago. In fact, it was a year ago in March that we first got the committee chairs together and said, start working on your reconciliation bill priorities. We knew that we would come to unified government. We were convinced that President Trump would win and that we would have the Senate and the House, and we wanted to be prepared to lead. We put together the playbook, as you've all heard me talk about so many times, and we did all that work. It took a lot of time, many, many months to get us to where we are. The Senate is a little bit behind pace, not because they weren't working hard, but because they were just engaging in other things. And so what we're trying to do now is fast forward their process so they can get the cliff notes of basically what we did for the last year and skip through some of those steps because we'll all get to the same point. And I think that's very important. I have been pressing very hard, very aggressively to get the reconciliation bill done by late spring. You've all heard me say that. I mean, I'm trying to get this to the president's desk for signature at least by Memorial Day. I think it's very important. I think the timing is very important because we have to bring stability to the markets. We've got to make sure everybody's tax rates are locked in and they know that so people can make decisions about expanding their businesses and jobs and other things. We've got to, it'll settle the bond markets. It will secure the border. It will help us to restore and maintain peace through strength. And of course, it'll prevent the largest tax increase in U.S. history. All those things are very important to get done quickly so that the American people can feel the results of it. This is going to be a great, great piece of legislation, historic, and we're anxious to get it done. Second row.
Speaker Johnson, as you know, some of your Republican colleagues have signed on to an effort to force the vote on allowing proxy voting for new parents. Republicans use this method during the pandemic. Why not have a carve-out targeted for new parents for a short period of time?
So I addressed this in conference this morning. That's okay. You good? All right, we're good. All right, good. We addressed this in conference this morning. A handful of our colleagues have gotten behind the effort, and look, I'm a father. I'm pro-family. The Republican Party is pro-family. We want to make it as easy as possible for young parents to be able to participate in the process. But proxy voting, in my view, is unconstitutional. In fact, I feel so strongly about it. I helped present a brief to the United States Supreme Court just about 2 years ago, or longer now. All my days run together, years run together. But when Nancy Pelosi invented proxy voting, okay, using COVID as the excuse for that, it took us down a trail that I thought violated the very document that organized us. I don't think it's constitutional. I think the founders intended that you have you have a presence of the members there in person, not just for quorum calls, but for votes itself. This is a deliberative body. You cannot deliberate with your colleagues if you're out somewhere else. Now, there are family circumstances that make it difficult for people to attend votes. I understand that. I've had them myself. Many of us have. The leader was almost assassinated. He was out for months and missed a lot of votes, but his constituents understood that, and we did. And we carried forward. Here's the problem. If you create a proxy vote opportunity just for young parents, mothers and the fathers in those situations, then where is the limiting principle? People have colleagues who feel equally convicted about this. Look, what if someone is ill, or what if their spouse is ill? What if their child contracts some sort of disease or cancer, heaven forbid, and they need prolonged treatment? Can they be out for that? There's no limiting principle that would stop that, I think, if we go down that road. And so I believe it's unconstitutional. I believe it violates more than 2 centuries of tradition in the institution. And I think that it opens a Pandora's box where ultimately maybe no one is here and we're all voting remotely by AI or something. I don't know. I don't think that's what Congress is supposed to be. So I addressed it, in the room with all the House Republicans this morning. I'm not angry at anybody for doing this. Understand the motives are pure. Anna Paulina Luna has brought it forward. She has pure motives, and I talked with her about it last night. But I just can't, as the leader of this institution and the one who's supposed to protect it, I don't feel like I can get on board with that, and I think I have an opportunity to speak out about it. So, yeah.
Last question, Mr. Leader. 2 questions on the same topic. Have you ever engaged in messaging chats with the Trump administration about national security matters, that includes Signal, whatever, all of those things? And also, I think you know the story, but I'm curious if the Biden administration would have been found out that they were discussing national security about attacks on other countries over Signal. I wonder how you would react to that.
Well, look, the White House came out with a statement, I think within the last hour. Somebody handed me what they said. They clarified there were no war plans discussed. There was no classified material sent on that thread. The White House counsel is looking into the matter, looking into how this other number was inadvertently added. Obviously, that was a mistake and a serious one. But I just want to say, thanks to President Trump and his strong leadership and all the everybody on that group chat, the leaders on that group chat are extraordinary people. I know them all personally. They're patriots. They're doing a great job for the country. And that was a successful mission. We're taking out Houthi terrorists. That's what the American people expect the administration to do, to restore peace through strength and to act decisively. So, look, they've acknowledged that there was an error and they're correct in it. And I would have asked the same thing of the Biden administration. I don't think anyone should have lost their job over that because an errant number, found its way onto a dialogue between leaders. It's a mistake, but we got to correct it going forward, and they will.
Was the mistake adding the reporter, or was the mistake having a Signal chat about these matters at all?
I don't use Signal. I don't know all the parameters of it, so I'm not in position to determine whether that's appropriate or not. You have to leave that to others. But I would just say, obviously, we got to be careful with these things, and I know that they will. Mike Waltz is a colleague of mine, former colleague, and he was born for the job. He is highly qualified. The president said he has total confidence in him, and we do as well. So, yep. Last one. Yeah.
On judicial impeachments, you have a lot of resolutions that are in front of you right now. I know your focus is on budget reconciliation. Is your plan to bring up these impeachment resolutions that have been brought forward? And if you do, are you concerned this will stall any progress that you want to make with regards to budget
We're
reconciliation?
working with the Judiciary Committee, which is the appropriate area of jurisdiction for that. I talked to Chairman Jordan this morning about it, and they'll be having a hearing early next week, I believe, to highlight these abuses. Let me just say this, and I know that you all have seen the numbers, but this is a serious problem. I used to be a litigator. I was a constitutional law attorney. I used to litigate all these cases for 20 years. Routinely, I would have activist judges issue opinions against me, and I would go get them overturned on appeal. That is the process. But something is happening right now that has not happened before. In the last 100 years, listen to this, 67% of the injunctions issued against a president were issued against one president alone, and that's Donald J. Trump. 67% of the injunctions over the last 100 years. Okay, that's a problem. 92% of those were issued by judges who were known or accused of being partisan, Democrat appointees to the court. So that something unusual is happening, something that is out of the norm. It is a dangerous trend, and it violates equal justice under law, that critical principle. It violates our system itself. It violates separation of powers when a judge thinks that they can enjoin something that a president is doing that the American people voted for. That is not what the founders intended. So there's a natural tension between the branches of the government, and we're working through that. The Judiciary Committee is looking at alternatives. One of the bills that I really like that's already been through committee was authored by Representative Darrell Issa, and that would limit the scope of federal injunctions, the ability of one individual judge to abuse the system in this way. And it would be, in my view, a dramatic improvement on that. So we'll be moving, I think, that piece of legislation and some others to address it, because we have an Article I authority under the Constitution to do that. We do have authority over the federal courts, as you know. We can eliminate an entire district court. We have power funding over the courts and all these other things. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act. So stay tuned for that. Thank
Will
you.
the judges testify before the committee?
We'll see. We'll see.
A great press conference from House leadership there, the House Republican Conference, and a great point by the Speaker just regarding 67% of the injunctions against a president in the last 100 years have been against President Donald Trump. Of course, there is a natural tension, as there should be, even if you have one party incomplete leadership in the House, Senate.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Listen, child, they came right on with the information, so I didn't want to be talking all over top of them. But they stay in front of the camera, so I mean, you no one can accuse them of running and hiding, because every time we turn around, they in front of the camera answering questions. So listen, it is what it is. I personally love it, so we can stay up to date with what's going on. Oh, sorry about that, y'all. But yeah, they letting you know what's going on. Yeah, transparency is great. Well, when he got to the part about them not being excited about the astronauts coming back, I'm like, they got stuck messing around with y'all. They got stuck up there on y'all watching. You mad because Trump had to bring them back? Child, the pettiness is at an all-time high. You say 95% of the threats to America are internal. This is true. Absolutely. 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 But yeah, these folks need to stop playing, wasting up all the course resources and time with this foolishness. I mean, I understand you don't like Trump, but again, you work for the people, and the people spoke by voting for him to become the next president. So, I mean, you got to suck it up and get on with it. I mean, so, because we all have worked for somebody we don't like or we don't agree with. But we decided, one or two things. It was either in our best interest to leave and not be bothered, or it was in our best interest to, suck it up. So it sounds like they need to, the old people say, have a come to Jesus moment. Y'all figure out what y'all want to do. What you say, John? Has anyone seen an administration put in this much work this fast? Child, no. It's been administrations haven't done this much the whole 4 years they were in office. Mm-mm. Seriously. Not at all. But again, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. It's not like he spent, we're gonna say the better part of 6 years running for president and then got in office and did something completely different from what he said he was gonna do. This is literally he's checking off the things off the list. Check. It is not that deep. It's really not, but people and their feelings, it'll be all right. It will absolutely be all right. Exactly. Do your job. That's what you're getting paid to do. Again, if you don't like your job, find another one. If it's really that deep. I don't think it is, but apparently for these people it is. Folks would rather look busy than to actually be busy. He want to get what he can before the midterms. I think another large majority of Dems are going to lose their seats again. More than likely. Mm-hmm. But you can't tell them that. That's why they out here hooping and hollering and got these cornballs all up on the screen talking about all this injustice and trauma that's supposedly going on. What you say? Trump was the first and only white man to dominate and actually hear Jesse Jackson out when he ran for president, but now he racist. Yeah. It's only because he's on the Republican side. If he was doing all of this as a Democrat, he would be the next Jesus, as far as they're concerned. He would be the next Jesus. So you can't really listen to these people. Jesse cheating behind, threw him under the bus too. Of course. I mean, but that's how you move when you compromise. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. You see what happened. Child, Jesse, your disappointment. His son getting out of what? Anybody know? They said, and Sharpton too. Mm-hmm. What happened to our elder leaders? Well, first of all, none. If we're gonna be for real, none of them were. None of them were really 100% straight. Let's be for real. Even none of them were really, even the ones that was rocking with King. Like they was on some jealousy, hating type of nonsense. So I mean, they didn't really have their eye truly and you know what I'm saying, completely on the prize. Because I mean, I personally think they knew, you know what I'm saying, knew what was going to happen to him and felt like if he was out the way, it was going to be their opportunity for stardom. how long would you say? Joe said he capped insulin to 35 and pardoned his son while being asleep all over the world during summits. Well, first of all, that insulin part, Trump already had that in the works. It just didn't clear before he had to leave office. So technically that was Trump. But now also the way that Trump had it, I think it was like 87% of all of the insulins that are available. This $35 that we get with Joe is only for like 4 kinds. I think it was when we went through it. So yeah, we not gonna act like Joe is giving us this wonderful gift because he, you know what I'm saying, tried to take credit for something he really didn't do. We gonna get, you know what I'm saying, technical with it. But I mean, you can always, you know what I'm saying, count on the Democrats to mess up something good. Instead of just, you know what I'm saying, letting that, you know what I'm saying, she was supposed to be about the people, just letting that ride. Can't do that. We got to go back and mess with it. So if it don't work, we can say we didn't have nothing to do with it not working. You gotta love it. You got to love it. Yeah, what you say? Our elder heroes are mostly sellout raccoons. Yep, like them coons. It's sad though. Like let the people have a win. Like it's not gonna kill you to let the people have a win. I mean, they act like it is. So let the people have a win. They can't do that. That's too much like right. It is too much like right. But they're gonna have to get over it. But we're gonna see what else is gonna be going on. More than likely we will have some comments from the president at some point today. So if we do, I will definitely bring that to you. But for now, I am going to bid you guys, what you say, John? Them still singing "We Shall Overcome" while we still in 400 years of impoverishment mentality. Like you, yep. What do you say? During the election, a lot of my conversations with my elders was about their concerns about Social Security and retirement, but none of that was ever an issue. Yeah. Listen, y'all ain't had these problems. Y'all ain't had no problems messing with y'all. Well, first of all, this is what people don't understand about Social Security. Social Security was never intended to be your only, you know what I'm saying, source of income. It was intended to be a supplement to your, you know what I'm saying, your other forms of retirement, your pension, your annuity, you know what I'm saying, your savings, whatever else you had going on. It was intended to supplement that, not be the only thing you got rolling in. That was never the intent. But you know what I'm saying, again, people don't want to talk about that. People do not want to talk about that. Look, John, I'm on the clock, so I can't do too much ranting, but I mean, I'm just, you know, letting y'all know what it is. But when you start, you know what I'm saying, giving people this information, you know, they don't want to hear it. They start all that hooping and hollering and you know, you will sell out and you know, you don't know what you talk about and this and that and the woo. I'm like, okay. I'm just trying to tell you. Be trying to tell them, and they be over there mad. I'm like, but again, you do that. You gotta make some better decisions. Like, and I understand. Like, I have an aunt. She worked. You're saying she worked in the cafeteria at UNCW, right? She decided she wanted to retire. So when she, you know, started looking into it, she got her paperwork, and she saw how much she was, you know what I'm saying, gonna get, it is literally not enough to live on, even if you live in the projects. She went on, I mean, she wasn't in a, you know what I'm saying, in any type of, you know, physical, you know what I'm saying, issue where she, you know what I'm saying, couldn't work. So it'd be one thing if you took the retirement and then got your little part-time job or something somewhere. She didn't want to do that. So now you're saying you took the retirement, it's not enough to live on. And so now you literally just in a state of stuck. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Always needing help. Always needing help. Always needing help. And I'm like, nothing's wrong with you. You could go somewhere and get a part-time job and get yourself together, but folks don't want to do that. So, you know, don't then turn around and be talking about, you know what I'm saying, how the economy bad and this is wrong and that's wrong and woo, 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 woo. No, you made some bad decisions, so you gotta ride it out. Hell, when I made bad decisions, I had to ride it out. It is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, you gotta, you know, figure out how you gonna come through it, or you gonna decide to stay in it. It is what it is. Would you say my team was straight Cam supporters, and now they all on the Trump train because of how I schooled them? Okay, well, at least they was willing to listen. At least they was willing to listen, because I got some still not listening. Still not listening, and still, you know, when you like, you know, what is it? What was it about what she was offering, or what did you know, saying, assume she was gonna offer that made you want to vote for her? It's still on that she black. She wasn't black. First off, she ain't black. So take that off the table. What we got to work with? Can't get straight. Can't get an answer. So I mean, you know, you can't. Everybody can't come. Everybody can't come. Everybody can't come. So it'll be all right. But all right, y'all. Let me get back to work. Like I said, if anything else. Wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, is this going on now? Wait a minute, we might be on to something. Hold on.
Our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, you know, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question. If this was Director Gabbard, if this was a rank and file,
yep, okay, this is Worldwide 3. This is the hearing on the
who
Worldwide
did this
threats.
kind of careless behavior.
Hold on, y'all. We got some.
What would you do with them?
Hold on.
Senator, I'll reiterate that there was no classified material that was shared in that.
And if there's no classified in materials, share. And then if there's no classified materials, then you can't even answer the question whether you're on the chat. This is strangely familiar, and I think my colleagues will remember when you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor?
He's trying to get booked.
Man, I have serious doubts about anyway. Director Gabbard, I'm going to give you this. Tweeted just 11 days ago, and I'm quoting you. Any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law and will be treated as such. So if this information is classified, what are you going to do?
Senator, 2 points here. First of all, there's a difference between inadvertent release versus
careless and sloppy,
malicious leaks of classified information. The second point is there was no classified information that was on
the information.
Signal
This committee
group
should get
chat.
that information. Director
And the
Patel,
National Security
Director
Council
Patel,
was
my time's about out,
how
and I'm
this
going to use
occurred.
my 12 seconds that the chairman gave. Director Patel, has the FBI launched any investigation of this?
Senator, I was just briefed about it late last night.
Okay, so
This
you
morning,
real
I don't have an update.
disrespectful.
I would like to get an answer by the end of the day.
At this point in the ordinary course of affairs, I would recognize Senator Collins. She asked me to express to you that she is under the weather this morning. She regrets her absence, but anticipates submitting written questions to which I would request your prompt replies for the senator. Senator Cornyn.
Director Gabbard, I applaud President Trump's efforts to try to bring an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. I want to read a statement out of the annual threat assessment and just confirm that you agree with this. It says Russia views its ongoing war with Ukraine as a proxy conflict with the West, and its objective to restore Russian strength and security in its near abroad against perceived U.S. and Western encroachment has increased the risks of unintended escalation between Russia and NATO. Do you agree with that statement? And that is in the annual threat assessment, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to refer to an AP story, Associated Press, dated March 21st, 2025. The title of the article is "Western Officials Say Russia is Behind a Campaign of Sabotage Across Europe." This AP map shows it. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent that's being made part of the record.
Without objection.
The document that AP compiled, and I presume this is through open sources, documented 59 incidents, including cyber attacks, spreading propaganda, plotting killings, or committing acts of vandalism, arson, sabotage, or espionage. Is that consistent with your understanding and impression of what Russia's currently engaged in Europe?
Senator, I haven't seen that specific article, but I can confirm that we assess Russia's attempts to conduct such sabotage activities in Europe.
Thank you. One of the things that I'm most concerned about following some of the discussions between Russia and Ukraine and the United States and our other allies, obviously, as I said, peace between Ukraine and Russia is the desirable end state. I think you'd have to be crazy to say otherwise. But I also want to talk a little bit about the unexpected or maybe unintended consequences of European insecurity. I know the incoming Chancellor of Germany has talked about the possibility that Germany might share its nuclear weapons with Ukraine and suggested that the UK would be part of that. I know that Poland has talked about acquiring nuclear weapons and perhaps other European countries to make up for what they view as a receding of the American umbrella of protection. General Krause, what would be the result of a proliferation of nuclear weapon-armed countries in Europe if in fact that would occur as a result of the perception of European insecurity?
Senator, thank you for the question. One of the things that the intelligence community works very hard on is to understand who has nuclear weapons throughout the planet. And as discussed in the opening statements, both by the chair and by Director Gabbard, the proliferation and the increase in the types and the lethality of nuclear weapons is one of the things that we have to track and we as a nation are going to have to face. It has changed dramatically in the last 5 years and will continue to change over the next 5 years. The addition of additional countries which have their own deterrence policies and will act in a nuclear dialogue, or the presence of those weapons, the security of those weapons, the movement and the threat of use of those weapons complicates the environment by which all of us will operate and will complicate all of the decisions by which all future conflict and the political decisions that we support are the decision makers.
It makes the world a more dangerous place, does it not?
Senator, yes, it does.
And just by way of history, Ukraine used to have the third largest arsenal of nuclear weapons on the planet. But as a result of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine and the United Kingdom, the Budapest Memorandum documented a commitment by Russia and the United States to protect the territorial integrity of Ukraine in exchange for them giving up their nuclear weapons. Did I correctly summarize the content of the Budapest Memorandum back in 1994?
Yes, Senator, you did. And Ukraine willingly gave up its weapons for the protection of others.
Thank you very much.
Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And obviously, my colleagues and I feel very strongly about the war planning meeting over unclassified phones. Obviously reckless, obviously dangerous. both the mishandling of classified information and the deliberate destruction of federal records are potential crimes that ought to be investigated immediately. And I want to make clear that I'm of the view that there ought to be resignation, starting with the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of Defense. Director Ratcliffe and Director Gabbard, have you participated in any other group chats with senior Trump administration officials in which classified information was shared using phones that weren't cleared for such information? Question for the two of you.
Senator, thank you for the question. I haven't, your question was, have I participated in any other group chats sharing classified information? To be clear, I haven't participated in any signal group messaging that relates to any classified information at all.
Okay. Director Gabbard?
Senator, I have the same answer. I have not participated in any signal group chat or any other chat on another app that contained any classified information.
Yeah, and I just think it's important to follow through here. Would the two of you cooperate with an audit to confirm that that is that is the case?
I have no objection.
Senator, I'll certainly comply with any follow-up that the National Security Council would deem appropriate. But again, to be clear, the use of signal message in end-to-end encryption applications is permissible and was, in this case, used permissibly, at least to my understanding, and in a lawful manner.
The seriousness of this is so clear. That's why I want to have an audit, and both of you gave me an answer indicating that you would be open to that, and I appreciate it. Director Patel, you weren't in this particular group chat, but have you participated in any chats on unclassified phones with other administration officials relating to national security? And if so, on what other topics?
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Senator. Not that I can recall.
Okay. Question I have for you, Director Gabbard, involves this question of Elon Musk wasn't going to see the military's China war plans because he said he, quote, has business in China and he would be susceptible perhaps to that. That was his comment. So as DNI, you're responsible for security clearance policies across the government. Under your watch, how are you going to go about carrying out this obligation? Because I think it obviously is a very significant one in terms of American national security.
Thank you, Senator. As you know, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence provides oversight over these different 18 intelligence elements. Leaders within those elements are empowered with that responsibility to uphold the trust that the American people have placed in them. In this example that you've cited, both Secretary Hegseth as well as President Trump completely denied the assertion that Elon Musk was going to receive any kind of classified war plan brief pertaining to China or any other country.
So on the question of whether the president has the prerogative to get clearances is really the area that I want to touch on, because you're formally responsible for security clearance policies, and that's why I'm asking about it. So can a president decide who gets the clearance?
Yes.
So what about your role? You're formally responsible for security clearance policies.
That is also true.
So how do we resolve it? President just gets his way.
The elected president and commander-in-chief has the authority to provide a security clearance to those who he deems necessary.
Mr. Chairman, and to the ranking member, I think we have to have a further discussion on this and figure out what the ground rules, are. I think it's clear what the director says. I just think we need more clarity, because I think you have the formal responsibility for security clearances, and now we've heard that this somehow is going to be the president's project, and I think we ought to have further discussions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Langford.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you to all of you, your service to the country. It matters. There are a lot of citizens of our country right now that have much greater security in their life because of the work that you do and the people that are working around you do. So I just want to say I appreciate that. For the folks in Oklahoma, they would definitely want me to be able to say thank you for your service. Let me ask a couple of questions on this. Director Gabbard, let me start with you on this. Iran has been listed as one of the top sponsors of terrorism for a very long time. They're the primary armors of Hezbollah, of Hamas, of the Houthis. They're arming the Russians to be able to kill Ukrainians. They continue to be able to destabilize the region. And just in the recent days, when many nations in the Gulf region have talked about how to provide greater stability, Iranian leadership stepped out and made very clear statements. They want a one-state solution for Israel, and it's to drive out all Jews. So this continues to be an issue, not just for the region, but for Americans in particular. So my question is on this is the sanctions and the effect of sanctions, what we know about the Iranian response. Under the Biden administration, those sanctions will turn down, where, quite frankly, Iran has been able to sell $90 billion in oil on the global market to be able to rearm itself and all the others around the region. Now sanctions are now going back onto Iran again. What do we know about the effect of those sanctions?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. These sanctions have just begun to be reinstated, so the full effects have not yet borne fruit. But the message that the president has sent with his maximum pressure campaign is certainly heard. As the chairman mentioned in his opening remarks, President Trump recently sent a letter to the leader of Iran expressing his interest in direct talks in order to try to de-escalate and to prevent war, prevent Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon, but also stated that there would be military consequences if there was no direct negotiations. So President Trump is continuing to carry out his vision and mission of peace through strength, acting in the best interests of the American people. We will see what choices are made from here.
Okay, thank you. Director Patel, during the last administration and the very open border policy that they had, we had some years, including 2022 and 2023, where there were 70,000 individuals that were released into the country that were identified as special interest aliens. This is something this committee and the Homeland Security Committee tried over and over again to get details on. The Biden administration was unwilling to be able to share any of the details and the special interest aliens, led to a great amount of frustration. The comment came often back to us is that FBI is going to track all these individuals and to be able to identify them, even though it was 70,000 a year that were coming into the country. You just walked into this position and trying to get your feet on the ground in so many different issues that are outstanding on that. I raised to you the issue of individuals that are currently illegally present in the country going through a process, but are listed as special interest aliens. By definition from the administration, those are individuals that we don't know their level of risk, but they're considered a national security risk, but we don't know anything else about them from there. So how are you trying to get on top of the number of people that are criminal aliens in the country, but also these special interest aliens that come from terrorist areas?
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate your question. As far as the FBI is concerned, you hit on it, criminal. So we are focused across our interagency partners at DHS, ICE, CBP, CIS, and elsewhere to identify through our information sharing networks that we have stood up with state and local law enforcement to provide us the details on any criminal evidence relating to any of the individuals you highlighted. And if there's a nexus there, a case will be opened, by the line agents who predicated lawful and factual basis to do so. And we will further refer that matter to the Department of Justice for prosecution. We are reviewing all of these cases anew, and we will report back to you, Senator, with some fidelity on the outcome of that process.
Okay, thank you. Are you getting good feedback from social media technology companies and cooperation from them on illegal activities that are promoted on their site? All the different sites have rules and standards for what can and can't be done on that. But for instance, in the border areas, many of the sites are allowing child trafficking, or they're allowing basically the hiring of Americans to come be drivers and such, and they know this is being circumvented. Are they working with you on that to be able to take illegal content off their sites?
Thank you, Senator. And we have engaged directly at the top levels of all the private sector software communities and social media companies, and they have been very helpful because they have been told that this is a priority for me at the FBI to work with them because they have so much information to share back with us. Now, that's, of course, just on the public systems. We're not talking about the darknet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Heinrich.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Ratcliffe, I want to start with you. Who determined that the content of this discussion on Signal was not classified?
Senator,
I guess I'm not.
Well, for example,
I can speak to my personal knowledge. There was no classified
agent mentioned as part of this story. Normally, that would be classified information. So I guess what I'm asking is, did you just determine it was not classified, or was there any declassification after the fact?
So to be clear, so everyone understands the process, as we talked about, Signal is a permissible use.
I
Has been
understand
used
that.
at the CIA, has been approved by the White House for senior officials.
And
has been
appropriate for many conversations.
And recommended by CISA for high-level officials who would be targeted by foreign adversaries to use end-to-end encrypted apps whenever possible, like Signal. In this case, what the National Security Advisor did was to request through a Signal message that there be coordination. So you mentioned the name of a CIA active officer, correct? So
I didn't mention the name.
You didn't
I
mention the
mentioned
name.
Existence of that.
And in the article, the implication was that somehow that was improper. That was not the case. So a CIA officer was not operating undercover. So the request for coordination was for a staff member to coordinate on the high side. So I communicated the name of a CIA officer not operating undercover, completely appropriate, who does openly and routinely coordinate with the White House as a member of my staff. So the intimation there that there was something inappropriate was clearly incorrect.
Did it occur to you that given the sensitive nature of this discussion, that it could just move to the high side?
So that was clearly, Senator, I think the intent was that this was initially set up by the National Security Advisor with the instruction that send a point of contact, and then you will be provided with information further on the high side for high side communication. So I think clearly it reflects that the National Security Advisor intended this to be, as it should have been, a mechanism for coordinating between senior level officials, but not a substitute for using high side or classified communications for anything that would be classified. And I think that that is exactly what did happen.
So I'm curious, did this conversation at some point include information on weapons packages, targets, or timing?
Not that I'm aware of.
Director Gabbard, same question.
Same answer, and defer to the Department of Defense on that question.
Well, those are two different answers, but you're saying that was not part of the conversation.
To my knowledge.
The precise operational issues were not part of this conversation.
Correct.
Okay. I want to ask you, Director Gabbard, something on a very different track here, which is I very much agree with the conclusion of the ATA that foreign illicit drug actors are a major threat in the United States, and many of you have spoken to this today. Is the IC wrong in its omission of Canada as a source of illicit fentanyl in the ATA? I was surprised, given some of the rhetoric, that there is no mention of Canada in the ATA.
Senator, the focus in my opening and the ATA was really to focus on the most extreme threats in that area. And our assessment is that the most extreme threat related to fentanyl continues to come from and through Mexico.
So the president has stated that the fentanyl coming through Canada is massive, and actually said it was an unusual and extraordinary threat. And that was the language that was used to justify putting tariffs on Canada. I'm just trying to reconcile those two issues. Is it an unusual and extraordinary threat, or is it a minor threat that doesn't even merit mention in the annual threat assessment?
Senator, I don't have the numbers related to Canada in front of me at this time. I'd like to get back to you on the specifics of that answer.
It's less than 1% of the fentanyl that we are able to interdict. But if you have different information, I would very much welcome that.
Senator Budd.
Thank you all for being here. And Director Gabbard, prior to your role here, we had a big storm in Western North Carolina, and you were among those first from outside our state to show up. So thank you for your work there. Thank you for your ongoing work there and that of your family as well. It was good to see them when out in Western North Carolina last week. So thank you. Director Hawk, so what do we need to do in regards to Volt Typhoon? There's a lot of pre-positioning that went on there. So where are we with that? And what do we need to do in regards to our power companies, whether it's generation or distribution, Duke Energy in my home state, or even the rural electric co-ops? What do we need? What have we learned? And what can I tell them?
Senator, 99% of the critical infrastructure in the United States is controlled by private companies. So that really drives us to talk about how do we partner with industry and with the commercial sector, in this case, the power sector. Volt Typhoon began when industry came to the intelligence community and said, we're seeing anomalous activity. Can you help us gain context? And we were able to bring context to that to be able to understand what the threat was and then to ultimately be able to identify who was behind that threat. Since that time, we've continued to work very closely with industry to be able to determine what are the right ways for us to be able to pursue these threats within networks to enable the interagency, to enable our partners and industry to be able to pursue them. That's the approach we have to take. It is a collaboration between the government and industry to be able to eradicate these threats, and we have continued to pursue them together since our first identification and notification that we did related to this particular threat.
Thank you. What have you done on the offensive side here in regards to, I think there were three, Salt Typhoon, Volt Typhoon, and even Flax Typhoon. Maybe there were others, but those are the three that are known.
Senator, I've been given really clear guidance in terms of what the Secretary of Defense expects in terms of our aggressive approach to be able to restore deterrence, and I look forward to talking with you about that in the closed hearing.
Look forward to that. Directors Gabbard and Ratcliffe and Patel, thank you all again for being here. So as you're all keenly aware, Section 702 of FISA is an extremely useful authority to help keep our nation safe. I also know that we need to rebuild American people's trust and confidence that such authorities are not being misused by the intelligence community to unlawfully target Americans. So since taking over your respective agencies, can you tell me and tell the American people how effective the recent changes have been in protecting privacy and civil liberties of each and every Americans? And then, if you will, comment on how useful the authority is in generating intelligence that actually protects the homeland. We'll start with you, Director Gabbard.
Senator, Section 702, which authorizes the foreign collection of non-U.S. persons outside of the United States, continues to be one of our most effective collection tools to ensure our national security. There are a number of reforms that the Senate passed, that Congress passed last year that have proven to strengthen the protections of Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. In the short time that I've been in the seat, I've seen a few examples of that directly, most recently through the FISA court, calling in an amici to come in and weigh in on a dispute regarding provisions that would further protect Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. I'll be visiting our friends at the NSA next week and doing a quote unquote ride along to observe directly how those reforms that Congress passed are being implemented to protect Americans' civil liberties, and look forward to reporting back after I've had that opportunity.
Thank you. Director Patel.
Thank you, Senator. With my background in FISA and 702, I just want to clearly delineate between FISA Title 1.3 and 702 collection. We need to both ardently defend its use, but also ardently support reforms that allow the American public to entrust that those charged with those capabilities are not violating the Fourth Amendment or any other violation. Speaking to Title 1, Title 3, when it comes to U.S. persons, I have already included an amendment in terms of FBI language to make sure that when a U.S. person is targeted, that the FBI specifically is responsible for culling through all exculpatory information that is reasonably known and satisfying that burden and stating it in the application. When it comes to 702, Senator, some of the biggest enterprise efforts we have had to thwart national security risk would not have occurred if 702 collection had gone dark. And the FBI continues to use that information to protect the homeland. We've had multiple takedowns in the last 6 months based on 702 and interagency collection processes. But we just need to ensure the American public, and I'm working with my team, that even in the 702 sphere, American citizens' information is protected.
Thank you all. I look forward to the discussion in the closed session.
Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Gabbard, I didn't intend to get into the Jeffrey Goldberg story, but something you said has sort of puzzled me. According to open source reporting at 11:44 on the morning of March 15th, Secretary Hegseth put into this group text a detailed operation plan, including targets, the weapons we were going to be using, attack sequences, and timing. And yet you've testified that nothing in that chain was classified. Wouldn't that be classified? What if that had been made public that morning before the attack took place?
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time. And I
so the
defer-
attack sequencing and timing and weapons and targets you don't consider to should have been classified?
I
or
defer
were
to the
classified?
Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council on that question.
Well, you're the head of you're the head of the intelligence community, and you're supposed to know about classifications. So your testimony very clearly today is that nothing was in that set of texts that were classified. I'll follow up on Senator Wyden's question. If that's the case, please release that whole text stream so that the public can have a view of what actually.
Okay, y'all be killing me with that. If that's not her area,
why
why
believe that
you know what?
targets
We
and
leave it alone.
timing and weapons would not have been classified. Well, let me move on.
Funny.
You approved this report, this annual report prepared by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Is this submitted to the White House routinely in anticipation of its public release?
I don't know what you mean by submitted routinely.
Was this report submitted to the White House before its release today?
It was submitted to them once it was completed. I think probably around the same time it was sent to all of you.
I want to move on. One note that surprised me, I've been on this committee now this is my 13th year. Every single one of these reports that we have had has mentioned global climate change as a significant national security threat, except this one. Has something happened? Has global climate change been solved? Why is that not in this report? And who made the decision that it should not be in the report when it's been in every one of the 11 prior reports?
I can't speak to the decisions made previously, but this annual threat assessment has been focused very directly on the threats that we deem most critical to the United States and our national security. Obviously, we're aware of occurrences within the environment and how they may impact operations, but we're focused on the direct threats to Americans' safety, well-being, and security.
How about how they will impact mass migration, famine, dislocation, political violence, which is the finding, by the way, of the 2019 annual threat assessment under the first Trump administration? You don't consider that a significant national security threat?
For the intelligence community, being aware of the environment that we're operating in is a given. What I focused this annual threat assessment on, and the IC focused this threat assessment on, are the most extreme and critical direct threats to our national security.
Let me ask a direct question. Who decided climate change should be left out of this report after it's been in the prior 11? Where was that decision
I
made?
gave direction to our team at ODNI to focus on the most extreme and critical national security threats
Your
that we
direction
face.
include no comments on climate change?
Okay, so what did y'all do with that?
Senator, as I
information?
said,
It was
I
in the
focused on
prior
the
11.
most extreme and direct national
That's not a
security
response
threats
to my question.
that we face.
Did you instruct that there be no finding in terms of climate change in this report?
I don't recall giving that instruction.
Final questions in a
Child, this
few
is
short
stupid. This is
seconds that
stupid.
I have left. You all concede, and it's in the report repeatedly about the cyber danger from China, from Russia, from Iran. Why then is the administration deconstructing CISA? 130 people fired. The General Hawk talked about the importance of public-private cooperation. That section of CISA seems to have been disestablished. What possible policy reason is there for undermining CISA's relationship to the states with regard to elections and to the private sector with regard to cybersecurity when the cybersecurity threat is only growing? Anybody want to tackle that?
I won't speak for all of my colleagues here, but I don't believe any of us have any insight into those specific staffing decisions that have been made.
Well, let me ask you this question. You've all found, the report has found explicitly growing cyber threats, including to elections from Russia, China, Iran. Do you believe that it's in the national interest to diminish our capacity to deal with those cyber issues? Yes or no?
President Trump is focused on effects and making sure that the people that we have and the resources that we have are focused on our national security. He and his team recognize that more people doesn't necessarily always mean better effects. Those are some of the things that are driving the changes that we're seeing across the administration, is getting all of our agencies back and focused on their core mission.
General Hawk, do you agree that?
Senator King, your time has
Time is
expired.
up. Thank you.
Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you to all of you for your service to our country. With regard to the issues surrounding Signal, I'm going to address it, but I'm going to address it in
You
the
didn't say
closed
shit in the
session
first place, sir.
so that we can get more in depth into that issue. In the meantime, I want to direct my first question to Director Ratcliffe. As the debate continues in Washington regarding spectrum, what can you share in this unclassified setting regarding the critical nature of spectrum to national security interests generally?
Thanks for the question, Senator. I know this is an issue of great interest to the Senate, and the potential auction of commercial space on spectrum. Those, as you correctly point out, the discussions about spectrum, I will start out by saying there are national security implications from such an auction were to take place to both the DoD and the IC. I think the discussions that we need to have in a classified setting, I can relate to you that the direction from early meetings that we've had is that the discussion about where that might take place would not affect specifically CIA or IC equities. And I hope that's the case and where the discussion goes. But I think we need to be concerned that a public auction at bands at certain levels would have an impact on our ability to deliver an accurate intelligence picture.
In other words, there are parts of the spectrum which simply cannot be shared with the commercial.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
And we can talk about the specific reasons about why in a classified setting that would cause a diminishment of our ability to deliver a good threat picture to the commander-in-chief.
And in some cases, life or death consequences
Absolutely.
involved. Thank you. Director Patel, first of all, I just want to thank you for what you are doing. And I know that there's a number of items that in your previous life you did that simply can't be discussed, but nonetheless, we've appreciated what you have done for your country already. Today, I just wanted to talk to you about, we've seen a series of public news reports about ISIS threats within the United States. And there have been several successful interdictions, Oklahoma City, Philadelphia, New York. Although the question remains as to the total number of ISIS operatives who were able to breach porous borders in the months and years before policy changes in this January of 2025, to what extent is the FBI tracking operatives who remain in the United States today? And what is the FBI doing to track them down?
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate your question and your comments. So the priorities at the FBI since I took over have been violent crime and national security, and this speaks directly to national security. The direction for the FBI is to track down any individuals with any terrorist ties whatsoever, whether it be ISIS or another foreign terrorist organization, and now to include the new designations of the cartels down south and elsewhere. So the FBI is utilizing our Joint Terrorism Task Force, which are situated in all 55 field offices. But the key to success there is our partnership with state and local law enforcement who have the ground level intelligence on some of these operatives. And as you've highlighted, we've already shut down numerous threats, and we've identified publicly where permissible these threats and individuals and where they're coming from. And I think the FBI is doing a very good job right now in collecting this information through our interagency process. And we will continue to thwart every bad actor affiliated with a terrorist organization or otherwise.
Thank you. And Director Hawk, first of all, look, you've talked a little bit already about Salt Typhoon, but what I want to really get into is the things that are moving right now that you haven't had a chance to address, and in particular, Cybercom 2.0 and the need to accelerate that particular plan moving forward. Can you talk just briefly? I've got 40 seconds left. Talk to us a little bit about how critical 2.0 is in terms of countering the cyber activity that's going on through nefarious actors.
Senator, what we were asked to do by Congress was to look at what's the force generation model for the Department of Defense to be able to generate cyber forces. Based off of that request, I produced a recommendation for the Secretary that outlined 3 critical things, which is really how we manage the talent, how we develop the talent in the department, and also how we equip that talent underpinned by compute and AI. We've brought that plan initially back to Secretary Hegseth. He told us to go faster. We've delivered him that plan. And now, based off of his guidance, we will now begin to move forward with the rest of the department.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for holding this hearing, and thank you for being here. Mr. Director Ratcliffe, it sounds to me like your testimony today and the Secretary and the DNI's testimony is that there was nothing wrong at all with the signal thread that you were on, that it didn't include any targeting information or battle sequence. That is your testimony. That's your testimony. And I'm a little staggered that that is your view, Director Ratcliffe. Does the CIA have any rules about handling of classified information? Yes or no? Yes. Thank you, Director Ratcliffe. Do you agree? Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said this morning when asked by members of the press what had happened. He said this morning in Hawaii that Atlantic Editor-in-Chief Jeff Goldberg is a, quote, deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of providing hoaxes time and time again. Do you share that evaluation, the Secretary of Defense's evaluation of Jeff Goldberg as a journalist?
Senator, I didn't see those comments. I don't know Jeff Goldberg.
So do you share that view of the Secretary of Defense?
Well, I don't have a view on.
Okay. Do you assuming that he has that view, I'm curious about whether you are the CIA director. Okay, this has happened. We know it's happened. Did Jeff Goldberg somehow, did he create a hoax that allowed him to become part of this signal thread? Please answer the question. You don't insult the intelligence of the American people. Did he invite himself to the signal thread?
I don't know how he was invited, but clearly he was added.
Clearly it was. Finish your sentence, please.
Clearly he was added to the signal group. Your question is,
you don't know that the president's national security advisor invited him to join the signal thread? Everybody in America knows that. Does the CIA director not know that?
I've seen conflicting reports about who added the reporter to the signal messaging
group. You think that it's perfectly appropriate that there was a reporter added, especially one that the Secretary of Defense says is deceitful, highly discredited, a so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes over and over again. Is your testimony that it was appropriate that he was added to this signal thread?
No, of course not. And
why
Senator,
did you not
well,
call?
hold on,
you
Senator.
are the
you're
you
mischaracterizing my testimony.
Good. You answered the question. Let me ask you. When he was added to the thread, you're the CIA director. Why didn't you call out that he was present on the signal thread?
I don't know if you use Signal messaging app.
I do. Not for classified information, not for targeting.
Well, neither
not
do I,
for anything
Senator.
remote.
Neither do I, Senator.
Well,
To
that's
be
what
clear,
your testimony is today.
It absolutely is not, Senator. Were you
No,
not
I'm saying
listening
your
at the beginning?
No.
When I said that I was using it as permitted, it is permissible
I
to
agree
use.
that's your testimony.
Yeah.
I agree that's your testimony. You asked me if I use it, and I said not for targeting, not for classified information.
And I
We'll
said
see
I
if
don't
the
either.
record shows. I also know Jeff Goldberg. I don't use it to communicate with him, but you thought it was appropriate. By the way, I think he's one of the more outstanding journalists in America, but I'm shocked to find him on a thread that he's reading in the parking lot of a grocery store in Washington, D.C. And your testimony as the director of the CIA is that it's totally appropriate. Is it appropriate?
No,
that the
Director,
president?
that is not what I.
Okay,
when did
go
I say
ahead,
it was?
please.
When did I use the word appropriate?
Well, go ahead, please.
Well, I didn't.
That everybody in America.
So clearly,
there's nothing to
Senator,
see here is what your testimony is.
No, I never said
This
that.
is just a normal day at the CIA where we chat about this kind of stuff over Signal. In fact, it's so normal that the last administration left it here for us. That's your testimony today.
That's your testimony.
No, that's not
Senator.
my testimony. That's what you said.
I didn't say any of those things that you just related,
I
Senator.
heard you say it. We'll let the American people decide. Let
Well,
me
I
ask
think
you one final point. I'm out of time.
Mischaracterized it. Well, are you going to give me a chance?
Is it appropriate? Did you know that the president's Middle East advisor was in Moscow on this thread while you were, as director of the CIA, participating in this thread? Were you aware of that? Are you aware of that today?
I'm not aware of that
This
today.
sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect for our intelligence agencies and the personnel who work for them is entirely unacceptable. It's an embarrassment.
Senator,
you need to do better. You need to do better. Thank you. I'm being gavelled by the chairman, and I apologize for going over my time.
Senator Young.
Thank you all for being here. I'll be asking some follow-up questions, clarifications about this Signal episode in a closed setting, and try and work with all of you to bring clarity to that situation. It appears to me there's some unanswered questions. It'll take some time, I think, to get there in a more dispassionate setting. Director Gabbard, I'm going to begin today asking you some questions about emerging technology. This has been a real point of emphasis, I know, of our broader national security community for a period of time. We know that PRC is making generational investments in certain emerging tech, AI, biotech, and other areas of technology to reduce their vulnerability against any supply chain disruptions and to lead the world in some areas. As the IC assesses, the PRC is seeking to, quote, become a global S&T superpower, surpass the United States, promote self-reliance, and achieve further economic, political, and military gain. So, Director Gabbard, can you describe the actions China is taking to operationalize that IC assessment in ways that directly target the security and prosperity of everyday Americans?
Senator, what we know is that they are trying to use these capabilities as a means to continue to exploit vulnerabilities within our own critical infrastructure and our cyber technology. The critical infrastructure is a key area of concern given what we know has already been exploited, these asymmetric attacks that have been placed within our critical infrastructure that are of serious concern given how they could be exploited, especially during a time of conflict. We know that they are experiencing a boom in their generative AI capability and are competing very heavily against our own AI capabilities. Obviously, AI can and will be used across a multitude of every sector of our society, both here as we are in our own country, and we expect China to be able to continue to do the same there.
So two key areas of vulnerability to the United States, conceivably, susceptibility to cyber attacks, and as China's leveraging of AI towards misinformation, increasingly into the physical realm, they can pose threats to us as well. As follow-up, Director Ratcliffe, we've had Huawei, we've had TikTok. What do you believe will be the next point of technological friction and competition between the U.S. and China? What should members of Congress be looking for?
Senator, I think I can answer this question more fully in the classified setting. What I would say is it relates to the issue of emerging technologies and matters of quantum computing and quantum sensing, and our ability to stay ahead of China on the technological curve with respect to those issues. I'd be happy to get into that in further detail in a classified setting.
Excellent. We'll dive into that. Director Haw, General, how do you see biotech playing into this broader competition?
I think it's an area that, from our perspective, has increasingly been a priority as we want to understand the approach that China's taken, and also to ensure that as we think about the president's priorities in terms of both economic and technology security, we are certainly, as a community, following DNI's guidance, that we are increasingly putting our resources to be able to ensure that we understand where China is investing in those resources and how that will impact our economy and overall the overall health of our national security.
Thank you, General. Director Gabbard, not a lot of time left on this end, but I do have a little crypto interest I wanted to communicate to you. Can you share with this committee how we're positioned to disrupt foreign cyber efforts to steal cryptocurrency, such as the North Koreans have successfully done? If others would like to pull this thread and weigh in on this question very briefly, that would be great.
Senator, we're obviously aware of North Korea's revenue generating by stealing cryptocurrency has had a significant effect on North Korea's capabilities. I defer to our technical experts on the actions that are being taken.
Senator, I think this would be a great topic when we go to closed session.
It's going to be a busy closed setting. Yes. Director Patel?
I agree with the general. In closed session, I can provide some details.
It's what you get when you visit with a bunch of spies. All right, Chairman.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to come back to the topic of the day here, the signal chain as reported by the Atlantic. Ms. Gabbard and Mr. Ratcliffe, you each testified that there was no information operational in nature, no classified information. So I want to ask each of you just a series of, just respond yes or no. I'll start with Ms. Gabbard. In the signal chain that we have been talking about, was there any mention of a target in Yemen?
I don't remember mention of specific targets.
Any generic target?
I believe there was discussion around targets in general.
Mr. Ratcliffe?
I think that's consistent with my recollection. Again, I don't have access to that.
Was there any mention, Ms. Gabbard, of a weapon or weapons system?
I don't recall specific weapons systems being named.
I'm not talking about specific, any weapon or weapon system?
I don't recall specific names of systems or weapons being used or named within the
Well, I'm
chat.
not asking whether, I don't want you to tell me what the specific weapon was, but any weapon at all. Mr. Ratcliffe, same question.
I don't recall.
How about anything about timing? Ms. Gabbard?
I don't recall specific timing.
Was there any
I
mention?
won't get into the detail of the conversation, but obviously there was a significant amount of planning and internal discussions that had occurred prior to and outside of this Signal chat.
Mr. Ratcliffe, you're nodding your head. Any mention of any military unit whatsoever? Mr. Ratcliffe?
Not that I recall.
Ms. Gabbard?
Not that I recall.
Okay, so I understand that DoD policy prohibits discussion of even what is called controlled unclassified information, or CUI, on unsecured devices. Are both of you aware of that DoD policy?
I haven't read that policy.
Not familiar with the DoD policy, but I would say that the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for DoD in deciding what would be classified information.
Ms. Gabbard, does the intelligence community have a policy that prohibits discussion of controlled unclassified information?
Yes.
It does. Okay. Controlled unclassified information, according to DoD, includes information that is information that has not been approved for public release. Would you, of what's been disclosed publicly of the signal chain, would either of you feel that that would be approved for public release? Ms. Gabbard.
The discussion that took place in that Signal chat group was a conversation reflecting national security leaders and the vice president around the president's objectives.
So yes or no, would you approve that for public release?
I don't feel I can answer that question here.
Because of the nature of this hearing?
Because of the nature of a private discussion that took place between individual leaders in our government.
It would make sense that you would not approve it for public release, wouldn't it?
There are other factors that would go into that consideration.
Mr. Ratcliffe, yes or no?
I wouldn't approve the release of classified information. Again, as I've said, my
I'm not talking about
understanding is
classified information, Mr. Ratcliffe. I'm talking about information that has not been approved for public release. That is information that is considered controlled, unclassified information.
The principles that would have been on that would have been individuals capable of approving that for public release.
Do you, I got 20 seconds. The deliberation as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country, would you consider that classified information, Ms. Gabbard?
The information was not classified.
This is not, I'm not talking about this. I'm just talking about deliberation as from principles as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country. Would you consider that classified information? I'm not talking about what happened this week.
There are other factors that would go into determining that classification.
Mr. Ratcliffe, the deliberation between principals in our national security apparatus about whether or not to strike another country, would you consider that to be classified information?
Pre-decisional strike deliberation should be conducted through classified channels.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may, I just want to return, Mr. Ratcliffe, to your answer there in part, Senator Kelly. It's been raised at several occasions now in this hearing about whether classified information was discussed in this chat. And you mentioned about the Secretary of Defense being what you called, I think, the original classification authority.
Correct. Correct.
I think it's important for the public to understand that although you and Director Gabbard are original classification authorities on many matters, you're not that for all matters that might be classified in the government. Is that right?
That's correct.
So if the Secretary of State has classified sensitive diplomatic details, that's his authority. If the Secretary of Energy has sensitive classified information about our national laboratories, that's his authority. And the two of you can't speak to other departments who have their own original classification authority, and which, of course, as Director Gabbard said, ultimately rests with one person, the President of the United States. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. It looks like the Vice Chairman wants to weigh in as well.
Just very briefly. I mean, I think it strains the audience and the watching public's credibility if we're talking about timing, packages, that somehow this would be okay to put out, or just frankly, senior American officials trashing Europe. I've been around this for a while. This is not information you generally put out. And the notion there's not even acknowledgement of, hey, gosh, we screwed up, is stunning to me. And the idea somehow, well, none of this was classified, but we can't talk about it here. You can't have it both ways.
I think the witness's point is that they can't speak for every official in the government who has original classification authority.
Chairman, I don't, that's not what I'm not trying to litigate that. I'm trying to litigate on the face unless, as Senator Bennett said, this reporter is somehow making this all up. And I think the White House has acknowledged that the text chain that he submitted was authentic. It strains my mind to think, again, it strains my mind if the shoe had been on the other foot, what my colleagues would be saying about this. And again, we're going to get to the bottom of it. And I appreciate your comments, but you guys have both testified under law. There's nothing classified in that information. There was nothing, in a sense, I've not heard either one of you say, gosh, we screwed up. So we'll find out. This is too important to our national security. And again, I know we've got more members to close.
They testified, is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's no intelligence community classified information. Is that correct?
That's
Director
correct.
Ratcliffe, is that correct? Director Gabbard?
Yes, Chairman.
Well, again,
That's not correct. She said repeatedly there's nothing classified.
right, period. You can't have it both. And again, we'll see. I cannot believe this is not going to come out. And if it's not classified, again, we'd ask you to give it to the public today. I'm sure one of your aides back there probably got it on paper. If you got it here, it's not classified, stand by your position. Or is this just one more example of a careless approach to how we keep our secrets in this administration?
With apologies to Senator Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here. I want to explore a little bit about Ukraine, and I'll direct this to Director Ratcliffe or Director Cruz. The ATA assesses that, quote, the grinding war of attrition in Ukraine, quote, will lead to a gradual but steady erosion of Kyiv's positions on the battlefield. Are Ukrainian forces at any significant risk of collapse this year? Go ahead.
Before I turn it over to Director Ratcliffe, I think both sides are working through the equipment that they need, the industrial base they need to support that, and the personnel that are required to man all of that equipment and man the front lines. And as we see the battle space in the various portions, whether it's in Kursk, whether it's in any of the 4 oblasts, we see areas where Kyiv will struggle to prevent the slow attritional grind. We do not see an imminent collapse in any of the line of control battle spaces at this point.
And then vice versa. That answers my question, unless you want to add something, Director. Whatever advantages in manpower and material they have, can Russia maintain its operational tempo without significant changes to how it's conducting the war?
I think our assessment from a military perspective is that Russia has the ability to sustain its campaign longer than Kyiv would. Now, when that timeline hits, we do not have an assessment of, but I believe that if this were to go on for more than the remainder of this year, both sides would have a significant challenge maintaining their defense industrial base as well as their operational ops tempo.
Longer than this year?
That is correct, and they will each have difficulty at various points throughout the spring, summer, and fall as well.
Thank you. Director Ratcliffe, ATA says continuing the Russia-Ukraine war perpetuates strategic risks to the United States of unintended escalation to large-scale war and heightened insecurity among NATO allies. What are the strategic risks to the United States if Russia were to achieve its maximalist objectives via peace agreement?
Achieve via peace agreement?
Yes.
Well, I think that clearly the negotiations that are going on reflect that President Trump is seeking a cessation of the war on terms that will end the war permanently. From an intelligence community standpoint, and specifically with regard to CIA assets, we've taken steps to support that, the president's goal of an enduring peace. To General Cruz's comments, I agree with his assessment and generally the public assessment that Russia has the battlefield advantage, is grinding forward slowly. I want to comment on that, however, to say that with regard to the Ukrainian resistance, the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian military have been underestimated for a period of several years now. And ultimately, I'm convinced from my reflections in observing from an intelligence standpoint that they will fight with their bare hands if they have to, if they don't have terms that are acceptable to an enduring peace. Obviously, to the point of maximalist goals, President Trump has communicated that he is aware of the dangers of that, of Russia getting what they want. And I think that the peace talks that are taking place would reflect, if successful, and they are making progress, that both sides would not get everything that they want and no one's maximalist goals would be achieved.
Thank you both. In the short time I have, I'm going to skip a question and ask that I intended to ask, but ask the director of the FBI. Director, I chair the subcommittee that appropriates money for the Department of Justice, including the FBI. It has been our practice that the FBI director, as well as the Attorney General, appear before our committee each year. And I want to make certain that you do not foresee any challenges that I will have in your presence when you come to speak when we invite you to come speak about your budget. I think when we visited in the office, you made yourself often available, pleased to talk to Congress. We're getting ready for the appropriations process to begin. The budget that the president intends to submit is seemingly months away, weeks away, long weeks away. And we may ask you to come testify about your priorities now or sooner than that. Is that a challenge for you that I'd be aware of?
From the FBI, no, as long as the Department of Justice and the Attorney General are good with it.
Thank you.
Senator Reid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Director Ratcliffe, you have repeatedly made the point that there was no classified information contained in any of these discussions that were reported in the Atlantic Monthly. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. So, Senator, what I've related is that any information that was related from my perspective or that I observed from the intelligence perspective was not classified information. With respect to the assertions and the allegations that there was strike packages or targeting information or things that relate to DOD, as I pointed out, the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for determining whether something's classified or not. And as I've understood from media reports, the Secretary of Defense has said the information was not classified.
Are you aware that the Secretary of Defense declassified this information prior to the discussion?
I'm not.
Director Gabbard, same question. You've indicated, at least the impression I got, was there was no classified information discussed. Is that correct?
Senator, my answer is the same as the director of the CIA's.
So the question has to be posed to Secretary Hegseth whether he declassified the information and at what point he did declassify it. Do you agree?
Yes, I defer questions to the Secretary of Defense.
Okay. Director Patel, are you conducting an investigation of these discussions and activities?
Thank you, Senator. As I informed the vice chairman on the same question, I found out about this late last night, early this morning, so I don't have an update for you on that.
Well, thank you. When you get an update, we'd appreciate it very much.
Yes, sir.
Director Gabbard, were you overseas during any parts of these discussions?
Yes, Senator, I was.
Were you using your private phone or a public phone for the signal discussions?
I won't speak to this because it's under review by the National Security Council. Once that review is complete, I'm sure we'll share the results with the committee.
What is under review? It's a very simple question. Are you your private phone or an officially issued phone? What could be under review?
National Security Council is reviewing all aspects of how this came to be, how the journalist was inadvertently added to the group chat, and what occurred within that chat across the board.
But so you were not going to disclose anything about whether you use the phone. Director Ratcliffe, there's been indication that the CIA has warned recently retired personnel about the vulnerabilities of Signal and other encrypted messaging applications. If that's the case, why were you discussing these issues on Signal?
Senator, signal use, as I've said repeatedly, is permissible for work purposes. I've never said that end-to-end encryption apps like Signal are a substitute for classified systems. And I was not discussing classified information in this setting.
But as you've indicated previously, perhaps the Secretary of Defense was discussing classified information, and only he can be held accountable in terms of whether it was classified or declassified at the point when he spoke. Is that accurate?
Well, I didn't say it that way. I said the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority. And my understanding is that his comments are that any information that he shared was not classified.
But you have no way to verify that?
I don't.
Again, this is a very troubling example and a great lapse in our intelligence and our discussion. One further point, if you are not aware of any classified information on the discussions back and forth, would it be appropriate for the author to release the entire text of what he heard or transcribed?
I think the author has released, my understanding, essentially almost all of the information as it's been related to me. I don't know what calculation the author made with regard to what information would be released or not.
Well, he
but again, I can again confirm that with respect to the communications that were related, as to me, there was no classified information.
According to the article, quote, the message contained information that might be interpreted as related to actual and current intelligence operations, and the author did not disclose that information. So the question would be, if he disclosed everything he heard, in your view.
That wouldn't be classified information. I know the context of what that is, and I think the author said might be interpreted as related to intelligence information. It was not classified information.
So it goes back to my point. If he released all this information he did not release, he could do so without any liability at the federal level.
I think you're asking for a legal answer that I'm not able to give you, but.
Mr. Patel, can you opine? You're a lawyer and you're the director of the FBI. Would he face any legal liability if he released the information?
Because of the questions you and the vice chairman have put to me, I'm not going to prejudge the situation, and that legal call is ultimately for the Department of Justice.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ossoff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for joining us and for your service. Just to make sure I understand some of the basics here. So Director Ratcliffe, you were a member of the Houthi PC small group signal chain, correct?
I was.
Yeah, and so were the Vice President, the Secretaries of State and Defense, the National Security Advisor, and Ms. Gabbard, correct?
I believe so. I don't have a list of who was invited to be on.
And so was national political reporter Jeffrey Goldberg, correct?
I don't know that.
Yes, you do.
I don't know Jeffrey Goldberg. And I've already testified, I don't know whether or how he was added.
Okay, well, he was a member of the signal chain, and the discussion included the vice president's private opinion on the wisdom of proposed U.S. strikes in Yemen, correct?
I don't recall.
Vance, quote, "I think we are making a mistake. I am not sure the president is aware of how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There was a strong argument for delaying this a month." You don't recall?
As you
don't recall seeing that?
Read that, I don't.
It included the private opinions of the Secretary of Defense on the timing of strikes in Yemen, correct?
I don't recall.
Director Radcliffe, surely you prepared for this hearing today. You were part of a group of principals, senior echelons of the U.S. government in now a widely publicized breach of sensitive information. You don't recall whether the vice president opined on the wisdom of the strikes? That's your testimony today under oath?
In that setting, I don't recall.
Here's what Secretary Hegseth said, quote, "Waiting a few weeks or months does not fundamentally change the calculus. Two immediate risks on waiting. One, this leaks and we look indecisive. Two, Israel takes an action first or Gaza ceasefire falls apart and we don't get to start this on our own terms." Your testimony is you don't recall the Secretary of Defense sending that message or reading it?
I recall there being an exchange. I don't recall the specifics as you're reading it.
Well, let's put it this way, Director Radcliffe, a discussion by senior U.S. officials on the timing and risks of a proposed military campaign and disagreements between the president and the vice president about U.S. plans and intentions would be of obvious interest to foreign intelligence services, would it not?
Yes.
And they were discussing the timing of sending U.S. air crews into enemy airspace where they faced an air defense threat, correct?
I'm going to, Senator, defer to the other principles that you're referring
Director
to
Radcliffe.
about what the meaning and the context of
They're
what they
talking
were
about the
auditing.
timing of U.S. airstrikes, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and therefore the timing of sending U.S. air crews into hostile airspace, correct?
Yes.
And therefore the time period during which enemy air defenses could target U.S. air crews flying in enemy airspace, correct?
I don't know that.
You do know that. Let me ask this question, General Hawk. You lead America's signals intelligence collection. Would the private deliberation of foreign senior officials about the wisdom and timing of potential military action be a collection priority for you and the U.S. intelligence community?
Senator, it's our job to do indications and warning for both the plans and intentions of adversary leaders and for military commanders.
And would not information about the timing of airstrikes allow a military to pre-position or cue air defense systems to shoot down enemy aircraft?
I think, Senator, from our perspective, any advance warning is something that we certainly are trying to protect.
Director Radcliffe, this was a huge mistake, correct?
No.
A national political...
Hold on.
No, you
Let me
hold
answer.
on. No,
The
Director
answer- the
Radcliffe,
reason
I
I
asked you
say
a yes or
no-
no question, and now you'll hold on. A national political reporter
You can
was made
characterize it how
privy-
you want.
was made privy
The White
to
House has
sensitive
made
information
clear
about
that there
imminent
was an
military
inadvertent
operations against a
mistake,
foreign terrorist
An inadvertent
organization.
mistake of adding a reporter.
And that wasn't a huge
to a
mistake?
seal.
That wasn't a huge mistake?
Well, I think they characterize
This is
it
an
as a mistake.
embarrassment. This is utterly unprofessional. There's been no apology. There has been no recognition of the gravity of this error. And by the way, we will get the full transcript of this chain, and your testimony will be measured carefully against its content. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the witnesses again for their appearance today. I sense the vice chairman has something to add.
I do.
So I will recognize him briefly.
Well, again, I thank the witnesses.
These some petty ass
what you're
men.
saying doesn't
This
make sense
is
on the
too much
face
for me. These men are so
Everybody
petty.
knows. At least, Director Radcliffe, you had the courtesy of acknowledging you were on the chain, Director Gabbard wouldn't even touch that, even though we've got our initials. And if you want a comparison, think back to the beginning of the Ukraine war, when the United States, in concert with our then ally, the United Kingdom, declassified a lot of Putin's battle plans that allowed the Ukrainians to push back successfully on the Russian invasion. How was that? That was gone through a real process of declassification. As Senator Ossoff so clearly made the point, this information out potentially where our adversary could reposition its defenses, in the unwillingness of the individuals on this panel who are on the chat to even apologize or acknowledging what a colossal screw up this is, speaks volumes.
Thank you to our witnesses for your appearance. A few administrative matters. As I mentioned earlier, Senator Collins is under the weather. She regrets that she could not be here for your testimony. Senator Risch likewise had to preside over a hearing of the Foreign Relations Committee to include the nomination of my former governor, Mike Huckabee, a great American and a great friend of Israel, to be the next ambassador to Israel. He also regrets that he could not be here. I anticipate he may have written questions as well. I would urge you all to respond to those promptly. Now, the audience will remain seated while our witnesses and their aides depart the hearing room. The Capitol Police will ensure this occurs. I want to commend the Capitol
Why you
Police
over here trying to lobby
and
for
our
somebody who ain't
committee
even
security
there?
staff
Y'all
for
doing
running
too
an
much.
orderly hearing today. For the benefit of members, the vote on the floor has been called. We will adjourn this open hearing and we will reconvene in closed setting at 12:40 p.m. The hearing is adjourned.
You know, I have to say that my head is shaking right now. I'm so sick of these hearings when
right,
either
so
side
let's
interrupts
take
the
this.
witnesses. Stop doing that. Ask
They
a
really do,
question
John. This a
and
hot
allow them
mess.
to answer. And quite
You're
frankly,
a
for the
whole
Democrats,
hot
especially
mess. Y'all
Senator
doing
Ossoff,
entirely
you think you
too
want to
much.
grandstand against the CIA director who has been so
You and me both,
forthright
dude.
and so transparent with the American people? What about General Milley when he was talking about or talking to the Chinese premier behind the back of President Trump? Have you investigated that? How about those 3,000 plus emails from Hillary Clinton that got whitewashed? Did you investigate that? Where were you during that? You got Senator Bennett from Colorado that sounds like he has marbles in his mouth when he's talking. He actually looks like a South Park character. I mean, it's an absolute joke sometimes. What these Democrats, they are throwing spaghetti at the wall. There's clearly an issue here that's being investigated, and rightfully so. But what are your thoughts on that hearing? Send us feedback at rsbn.tv. But it's funny, as the House Republican caucus said earlier, these Democrats don't have a message. These congressional Democrats seem to be, the left hand doesn't know what the far left hand is doing, as Tom Emmer so aptly put it. So that is morning and now afternoon in America, ladies and gentlemen, March 25th, this beautiful Tuesday, as you look at that live shot of the White House, that emerald aisle of green on the North Portico there. Always a beautiful shot to see our nation's capital where President Trump is diligently at work. So with that, some of our sponsors, Colonial Metals Group. We love gold and silver here at the network. And Paul Stone, the great CEO of this amazing organization, excellent at getting this knowledge out to you, the American people, not only for your retirement, but for those big...
Talking about the sponsors. Child. Exactly. This is my thing right here. Everybody wants to talk about, saying these people are incompetent and inept and we're in such danger and all of this. Who in their right mind would stay in front of a camera making a total and complete mess? Like, y'all, let's be for real. Joe would have been asleep 2 hours ago. Joe would have been asleep 2 hours ago. We good. We don't even need these type of problems. We don't need these type of problems. But I mean, like it's the pettiness of the men for me that I can't get over it. Like I know men petty, but like this is just y'all have taken this to a whole nother level. Like it's crazy. This is next level petty. Next level petty. I'm talking about, and they old. It's not even like these young dudes. These old MFers. Like, seriously? Just no. I don't understand. Like, y'all need to get y'all testosterone checked. You right. Ain't no cure for stupid, child. But they need to get their testosterone checked. Like, this don't make no sense. Yeah. I'm just saying, and thinking they doing something is what's getting me. Like y'all got the oof. It is a damn shame. You right, y'all old dudes got to go. They got to go. They got to go. So this getting to the point where it's not even really entertaining anymore. It ain't even really entertaining anymore. But it's sad. I mean, you gave somebody some information less than 18 hours ago, if we're gonna be honest, and then you want to try to, you know what I'm saying, try to put a spotlight on them and grill them on it. Yeah, don't Patel, don't fall for the bait. Yeah, don't fall for it, Patel. What you say? The how about this and how about that? If it's firmly, yeah. They don't have any leverage, Eric. Oh, hey MC, how you doing? To me, you been here ninja watching working. But that was too funny. Child, listen. Yeah. It's Well, I'm glad you popped up. You know, we've been missing you. You know, we had a session last night. You know, you would have enjoyed it. Go ahead and check it out on the replay. It was our regularly scheduled non-political content. But we'll be on tonight as well. So definitely make sure you are here. And you know, as always, it took a turn. So well, you know, they didn't have anything to say anyway. They call themselves being intelligent to where they're gonna, you know what I'm saying, try to bait you into telling on yourself, but that they never get to that. It'd be too much. Okay, cool. All right, MC. Okay, y'all. So yeah, we are approaching well, yeah, it is the lunchtime hour. So for those of y'all who, if you know, you know, yeah, weak version of good cop, bad cop. It's always that. But my thing is, come with some evidence. You want me to believe that we had this major breach in security, but only one person was able to access this information? Is it me, or that don't sound like much of a breach? That's all I'm saying. If you had, 200 or 300, journalists with all of this, I got the transcripts, I got, I got access to this conversation, then I might go along with you. But you got one person. Like, let's be real. Like, So yeah, when you get it, let me know. Ain't nobody got time for all of this. It's foolishness. It is straight foolishness. Hey, Danny. So you will have to catch the replay, child. It was reindeer games at its best. I'm gonna say that. Yeah, straight reindeer games at its best. Real. Like, yeah, it's way too much going on. All right, y'all. I got a meeting I got to run to. Again, I appreciate all of y'all for coming to hang out and take a look at these shenanigans and this nonsense. If anything else pop off, I will definitely be back. Again, we'll be on later on this evening for our Tommy Tuesdays. For those of y'all who know, it is definitely guaranteed to be a barn burner because we will be taking a look at Tommy's multiple interactions with Dr. Umar Johnson's daughter, as well as interactions and reaction to comments made by Umar Johnson by Tommy Sotomayor. So all thanks, Tommy, this evening. I appreciate that, Eric. Make sure you come on back. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Until then, you guys have a fantastic afternoon. And thank you again for stopping by. I truly appreciate it.